it was just a little bit of a rush in the room.
Yeah.
So if you can just summarize it a little bit.
Yeah. So we were just talking about how it would be cool to have Leonardo's some of his, like, he was a man of many talents and ideas, and he had a lot of these sketches for flying machines, and he had not just flying, but there were so many different machines. And this is definitely one of the most iconic ones, probably the most iconic one. And we said it would be really cool to try that, to build out of Lego elements. And yeah, here it is. And it is definitely one of the coolest models I've ever worked on, one of the most challenging ones. I mean, like, when you think about it, the whole model is basically a big function.
Yep.
Everything is interlinked, and that's what was really challenging, to just make it smooth to work. And yeah, I just love it. And it has this little the sound of the like a bat. So yeah, I could talk about this model all day and play with it all day. I love it a lot. It was we were just talking before in another interview how we often work on a lot of things we're passionate about, and this was actually something that was very new to me, and that's where like my passion comes from, like learning new things. And I got to work on this model with Mike Saiki, which, like, he's such a smart guy, and like he shared so much knowledge. I feel like I learned so much working on this model, because I didn't know, like, where I would build something and he would be like, oh, you have to move this like 2 millimeters further. Like, this is half a module wrong. Like, okay. So it was such a pleasure to work on this together. But yeah, so you can, like, for of course it's intended for for play as well, and like we want kids to play with it as well, and adults, and it's a great display model, all in one. So you can hold it here, and then you can hold it like that if you have smaller hands. But the way I like to hold it is like that. Just flap it around like that. I think it's quite fun. And the idea about this was, so the main challenge was basically to make everything work with the string. So there's numerous ways how you can make the function, how you can make the wings go down, because, like, we have a lot of elements that can do that. But we said, okay, like, Leonardo's idea was that a person is lying down here, so the person would be, like, let's say that tall compared to the machine. So the head would be here, and then you would be pulling these two with your hands, and then you would be kicking here with your legs, which of course is impossible to to do. But so yeah, we started with that idea of, like, what if we had everything moved by actually pulling the string, and that was a challenging part, but we made it work, and I think it works pretty fine. It's very smooth.
Really cool. So, and does it have like a spring somewhere?
Yeah, and I also have some overview of fun elements you might like, all in beautiful Renaissance-y colors. So we have the shock absorber and this beautiful wooden color.
Oh.
And the link is also a new color. And we also have this, I think it was only existing in transparent before. I'm not 100% sure, but...
Oh yeah, that's the new twisted.
Yep.
Link.
And then we have strings in brand new color, so that's dark tan, because we wanted something that looks like a proper rope. Because Da Vinci's idea was to make these machines out of wood, rope, and linen, which, I mean, it's a bit very optimistic to say. So yeah, that also influenced the color scheme, because we wanted to stay as close as we can to that. So that's why I also chose elements that worked, like, to keep it really clean. Like, we do have there's a combination of Technic elements and system elements, but I really wanted to keep it as system as possible. There are some Technic ones. I think there's maybe, like, out of 490 elements, 80-ish, 70-ish Technic ones. They're just not that visible. But yeah, so we chose elements also to make sure that they just fit this tone of voice and the style. So yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that exactly. That if something has function that is moving, then Technic is an obvious choice. But there aren't many visible technical elements
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah, I mean there are
Yeah.
a few, but I think they work really well. Like this is half beam, but I think it works really well in combination with everything. Also, these to me they really look like a piece of wood, and like it's something that we use in our botanical line as well.
exactly.
So I think they all work really really well.
Yeah. And how challenging was that to hide the functional
that's the
parts?
thing. I think also like choosing some elements, like I don't want to hide them. Like also, we left this deliberately open so you can see the functions, you can see everything. And I think that's something like that we like embraced early on, is like we want everything to be visible. Like we want the whole function to be there so you can actually admire how it works. Because some people who like once we were done with the model would come and play with it and be like, how does that work? And just like you studied. And I think it not hiding anything allows you to do that. Like just looking at the model like, oh, this pulls that and then goes here. So I think it's part of the fun as well. And we also have a little stand there.
Yep.
So you can display it like if you want sideways or this way. This is the main way, but
Yeah,
you
very
can do
nice.
whatever you want. Little Leonardo, and something fun about his little tile. So he had this funny technique of writing. So he would sometimes use mirror, and then he would just write backwards. And at some point, he was just so good at it, he didn't need the mirror anymore. And it was just funny at some point when we were like done with the model, and someone came and said, "I think you have a mistake in your model." It's like, what happened? Well, the tile it's backwards. Like, no, it's actually fine. It's supposed to be like that.
About since it's very much a play function, how did you approach the sturdiness?
Yeah, there was we had some funny tests. So I remember this particular thing when it had to be something that kids can play with too, because it is something that's very inviting, I think, for younger audience. It is an 18+ model, but I'm pretty sure a lot of kids will build it and want to play with it. And we had this one of our wonderful model coaches came and she said, like when I think about kids, the way they will play, like they're not gonna press you, they're just gonna want to do this. I was like, okay. So I had a model at some point that the wings would go like flip the other way. I was like, okay, so I need to redesign this so that when you do this, and you can notice that you can actually do this.
Yeah.
And there was a kid in the office, and I was like, hey, can you play with this? And the kid was just running around doing this. I was like, okay, so I have to make sure that these wings don't do that. So yeah, that's another thing that we did. It's actually really, you can play with it. It's quite sturdy. I love that model a lot. It's something that just grew on me so much during development.
Oh, and you have the rubber piece at the rear?
Yeah, so that's the piece that, so we decided that the wings, like the zero position should be like the wings up,
upwards,
just
yeah.
because it looks really nice. So for the wings, we used the shock absorber, and then for the back,
Okay.
we used the little rubber element.
Oh yeah, and so then the string goes back.
And then the string, so
Okay.
basically the string is the one that's powering up everything. So you're pulling the front string, but it's also like,
Yeah, but the pushback action here is the rubber
yes.
band. Very cool. Awesome.
And it's very smooth. We had to test, how is it okay to be using the string in this way, so we had a lot of tests to make sure that we can actually do this with our elements. We had to make it in a way that it's going to be sturdy and nothing's going to be stressed or damaged in any way. So it actually works. That's the best way to do it. I think it's just the most fun.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah. I'm just wondering, when you have the model completed, is it yourself doing most of the tests, or you have like standardized?
We have a lot of different people depending on what you're trying to test. We have a team of people that they estimate like how people might be handling it, and we do it with a lot of models. With most of our models, it's like, when you work on something that has younger kids in mind, then we think, okay, how are they going to move it around? Like, how are they going to pick it up and take it somewhere else? And that model has to be sturdy to be picked up. So it's the same with this. Like, you need to be able to grab it, and everything has to stay in place when you do so. You understand? If you want to take a photo.
Oh, and that's put sideways and
Yeah,
very
just
cool.
attached. Yeah, and the way it's built, I also like we were thinking about the building process a lot because the model was challenging. Everything is interlinked, so it's like, how do you build everything together? And you build the stand first, and then you start building like the chassis of the whole thing, and then once you get to the point of building the trigger and the wings, you place the model on the stand, so it kind of helps you like, it's I think it's really nice.
Was it ever considered to add like a brick built figure that shows how Leonardo's original idea of how the human would use this?
We were talking about it, but I think we just abandoned that idea at some point. Because it's similar to a lot of our like vehicles that we have, for example. Like we never build a figure that sits in that vehicle, so it was similar with this. But we did want to make a
It's
mini
kind
figure.
of like unique to this idea, and the instructions will definitely include some background history on that.
We will have like always some fun facts and extra information about that.
This is the most exciting one.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, back then when they announced that one of the interviews was an ancient vehicle, I came first. The first thing that came into my mind was this.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Then I thought, no, it's so far-fetched. So
But
probably,
I mean, that's similar to like our thought process, because when you think like, oh, if we do something like this, what, and then first thing that comes to mind, that's the most iconic thing.
that's really the first thing. The other one was a chariot.
Okay.
Yeah. This one's
It's quite funny. Sorry, we had the same because we were, when we had the list of the interviews, and it only said icons ancient vehicle,
Okay.
and we were speculating. I think it was with Jay from Jay's Brick Blog. So what will we have? What will it is? Maybe Leonardo's flying
Yeah.
machine.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign.
Is it okay if I ask?
yeah, absolutely.
So
Go ahead.
about the scale, how did you approach the dimensions of the model? So what was were there any specific parts that?
There was no set scale. I mean, it was. I started from the wings, so it was just like getting the wings right when it comes to shape, and then be like, okay, this is the size. I think once we had the idea of having everything being powered with the string, then it was like, okay, so we need to make sure that this string can go around the model. So there was like, okay, so maybe we need to make this smaller, this wider. So that started to shape the model once we knew which elements we want to use for certain things. But also once I realized that I really wanted to use these elements for wings, and then how many I want to use and what would be the shape, I think the next step was to make these as prototypes, and then it was like, okay, just a proportion, because we did have some sketches, so we're trying to stay close to them. So once we had the wings, then the rest was just okay, making it to make sense, like when it comes to proportions to the wings.
Was it always the plan to have this trigger action, or it just developed?
We were playing with different things. I think that came. It was in the beginning, but I think the prototype that we had, the first model that was built, had a trigger somewhere else, and I think had another string. And then we were just talking about like what is possible to do, because we have a lot of ideas, but then at some point it's like, does this make sense? Is this okay for the model? So we decided to have one string for the wings at some point, and then it was like we realized you need one trigger for, like, you want to have one trigger, one place of moving everything. Like in reality, this thing has, you're moving things with arms and legs. So I think it makes sense. It was like how what's the best way to activate this whole thing. And if you're okay, just do that.